A party of heroes was battling a powerful dragon. Despite their large numbers, they couldn't even injure it. On the contrary, they were being pushed into a dangerous situation. Dennis couldn't fight. His role was to stay in the back and provide healing support. Captain Vigo secretly injured the dragon's eye, enraging it and causing it to unleash a massive lightning attack. As a result, the world's strongest party, Silverwing, failed this mission. Immediately after, a meeting was held. Vigo placed all the blame on Dennis, claiming that he used Dread Voice, which caused the dragon to flee, thus ruining their chance to defeat it. Dennis, furious, said, "You're the one who ordered me to use it." Vigo denied ever giving such an order. The mission's goal was to defeat the cave dragon and collect its rare parts, but the dragon went berserk unexpectedly, putting everyone in danger. So Vigo had told Dennis to use Dread Voice to drive it away. That's why the mission ended in failure. Now, however, Vigo is trying to pin everything on Dennis, accusing him of being a spy for a rival party. He even suggested expelling Dennis from Silverwing. No one opposed the idea, so Dennis assumed they all agreed. Vigo said, "A chef like you never deserved to be part of this party in the first place." Hearing that, Dennis got angry and challenged him to settle it with a fight. Vigo replied, "Silverwing is for skilled swordsmen, healing mages, and heavy knights like me. In other words, real classes. You being here was a mistake. We're all level 99, but a lowly chef like you has no place here." Dennis held back his anger and left. He had no reason to stay any longer. After packing his belongings, he planned to leave the capital. Suddenly, a girl bumped into him and lost her balloon. Dennis jumped up and retrieved it for her. He told her, "If it's important to you, don't let go of it, okay?" Vigo watched with satisfaction as Dennis left. He had some scheme in mind, which was why he got rid of Dennis. Katie, a close party member and the one who had invited Dennis to join Silverwing, chased after him and told him not to leave. She hadn't been at the meeting and didn't know what had happened. If Dennis left, who would handle alchemy, metallurgy, and more importantly, who would cook dinner? Dennis replied that others could replace him in doing those things. Katie said that ever since Dennis joined, their party had been able to dive into dangerous dungeons much more easily. They were now called the world's strongest party, but no one realized Dennis was the silent hero holding the rear line. She didn't want to lose such a wonderful comrade and begged him to at least cook one last dinner before he left. Dennis asked, "Is food all you think about?" Katie seriously asked what he planned to do next. Dennis replied that he would cook and open his own restaurant. Katie blamed herself for not being able to do anything, even though she was the one who had invited him to the party. He thanked her for bringing him into Silverwing. The two of them got along well, but Vigo was interested in her, so he probably didn't like that. He bid her farewell, and thus ended his life as an adventurer. But his life as a chef was just beginning. He went to the market to buy ingredients and start preparing to open a restaurant. He found a pretty good refrigerator. The seller introduced it as a magical item called an ice box that could keep food cold without ice, a must-have for any restaurant. Dennis was about to buy it, but remembered he should consult his beginner's restaurant guide first. He needed to keep his initial costs as low as possible. Since he could use ice magic, he decided not to buy the icebox. To avoid future mistakes, he read the entire book and followed its instructions. First, he needed to buy a cheap, abandoned property and renovate it. Then, make connections with local food distributors. Next was buying essential cooking equipment. Once he had everything he needed, Dennis felt thrilled. His childhood dream was finally coming true. Lastly, he needed to hire serving staff. He couldn't cook and serve at the same time. Coincidentally, he came across a girl being auctioned off nearby. She used to be a noble lady from a prestigious family. Her parents had lost a political power struggle and were exiled. She had drifted from place to place and ended up here. Her noble features made her desirable to many men. Though still young, she was bound to become a great beauty. She could be used for all kinds of things. Dennis wanted to help her, but he knew he couldn't save everyone. If he kept getting angry over all the injustice in the world, he wouldn't survive, no matter how many lives he had. The auction started at 100,000 PIs. Bidding rose to 800,000 PIs. Dennis suddenly bid 1 million, surprising everyone. But the icebox shopkeeper outbid him with 2 million, saying the girl was cute and that he would take good care of her. Dennis could see the perverted look on his face and didn't want the girl to fall into such hands. He continued bidding higher. His opponent was wealthy, so Dennis ended up spending all the savings he had built up over time to win the girl. Seeing her condition, he bought her some clothes. By the time they finished shopping, it was already evening. He told her to stay close or she'd get lost. The girl, walking like a lifeless doll, got separated. Looking around, she couldn't see her new master. Memories of her terrible past resurfaced, making her sad. Her mind started to go blank until she heard Dennis calling out. He had assumed she was following and didn't notice. He apologized for walking too fast. She asked why he bought her. He said there wasn't any special reason. He just remembered something from the past. He asked for her name. She introduced herself as Atelier and called him Dennis-sama, making him feel a little awkward. He told her she could leave out the unnecessary honorifics. Atelier asked what she was supposed to do. Dennis told her she didn't have to do anything. If she wanted to stay, she could live upstairs, or she could leave if she wished. This surprised Atelier. At that moment, her stomach growled from hunger, so the best choice was to stay. Dennis cooked a simple dish for her, egg-fried rice. The ingredients were varied, but he chose beef as the protein. After adding the eggs and rice, he started mixing, then added the beef and onions. Watching him cook made Atelier feel more at peace than ever. All her worries melted away. When he finished, he served it to her. She tasted it, and the flavor immediately overwhelmed her. She had never eaten anything so delicious, and tears of happiness streamed down her face. She must have suffered a lot. Dennis didn't know what she had been through, and if she didn't want to say, he wouldn't ask. She ended up choking from eating too fast. The next day, Atelier voluntarily helped Dennis. Since she had chosen to stay, Dennis bought her another outfit more suited for work. In addition to helping clean the restaurant, she also helped Dennis evaluate his dishes. The two gradually grew closer. Though she didn't talk much, she started to express emotions through smiles. After a few days, they completed the restaurant's interior. Dennis was overjoyed. His dream job was about to begin. From the outside, the restaurant looked simple, but inside it was clean and beautiful. The adventurer-themed restaurant was now open. Atelier would be the face of the restaurant to attract customers. Though they hadn't had a single customer yet, she looked very enthusiastic. Looking back on all his preparations, Dennis felt proud. He was curious who the first customer would be. He would make anyone addicted to his food with just one taste. More importantly, he needed to make money. He had none left. Right then, a guest in armor entered, surprising them both. Dennis remembered the handbook for former adventurers, page 68, which said, "Among your customers, there will be those who don't want to be bothered. Respect their boundaries and make it easy for them to enjoy their time in your restaurant." He warmly told the customer to sit wherever she liked and asked Atelier to bring some water. While the customer was looking at the menu, Dennis looked excited. This was his first customer, and he was determined to make the meal delicious. The customer ordered a small rice and crystal umeboshi. Dennis asked her, "Do you usually eat this little? Could it be that you don't have much money? Do you like Vritra katsudon?" "Katsudon it is. I'll make one for you." Hearing that, the customer replied she couldn't afford that meal. But Dennis insisted that he wouldn't let his first customer have a poor meal and told her to enjoy the katsudon. It was only then that he noticed her voice and realized she was a woman. It turned out she had been kicked out of her adventurer party just because she was a woman. They said female swordsmen were weak and only caused trouble, so they weren't needed in a party. The girl was furious. What did gender have to do with skill? Dennis agreed with her. She said she was level 23, more than qualified for the job. Moreover, she had heard that the Silver Wing Battalion has a lady swordsman, one who always strikes first and lands critical blows. A legendary female swordsman, despite being a woman. Of course, Dennis knew her well. She had been quite a troublesome person for him back when he was with Silverwing. Today, she was hiding her true gender to find a new party. But no party would accept her if she didn't speak up. While worrying about that, she was nearly out of money. He brought out the food and told her, "You'll feel better once you've had something to eat." She repeated that she couldn't pay for the meal. Dennis said she could bring the money another day and told her to eat before it got cold. She thanked him and took a bite. It was so good she couldn't stop. She said she had never eaten anything so delicious in her life. He was glad she enjoyed it and hoped she would become a regular customer. She promised to visit his restaurant every day, but first she had to find a party and earn some money. Dennis said he would ask other customers if they needed a female swordsman. Hearing that, the girl was overjoyed. Since it would be hard to stay in contact, Dennis told her to drop by the restaurant often for updates. Later, other customers commented that the food here was so good it made them want to cry. They wondered, what kind of restaurant is this? They were also delighted by a cute young girl server, comparing her to an adorable cat. While cooking, Dennis overheard a group of adventurers talking about going into a dungeon. He asked if they needed a female swordsman. He wanted to introduce a skilled and very cute swordswoman to them. They didn't decline. They were looking for a swordsman anyway. That night, the girl came back, and Dennis happily told her he had found a party for her. She promised to repay him once she got her first reward. However, Dennis warned her to be careful. He didn't know anything about this party, but she said it was fine. If you worry about every little detail, you'll never be able to do anything. She ate Dennis's meal with a very satisfied look and reminded herself to make a lot of money to repay him. She finished her food and left with a full belly. These were probably the last customers of the day, a wonderful grand opening. While two customers were eating, they chatted about recent news. There's a party that's been recruiting solo female adventurers, then assaulting them deep in the dungeon. They take her deep enough that she can't get back solo. Then they just leave her there after having their way with her. After doing that a couple of times, they move to another town. Dennis was very worried upon hearing that. The next morning, the girl, Henrietta, met the party Dennis had introduced. They introduced themselves to her. Still, a lightweight swordsman. Marmok, a healer. Handok, an archer. Kalatoba, a mage. Still was the nominal leader, but they didn't have ranks. They told her to relax. They said they'd be doing a simple gathering mission. Go into the dungeon, collect a few things, and be done. They didn't say exactly what they were gathering and said they'd explain once inside. Henrietta didn't want to ask too much and create tension, so she just followed their lead. She defeated monsters in a single blow, a show of strength from a heavy swordswoman, which reassured them. She felt this was the first time a party had actually trusted her, since she had always been underestimated because she was a woman. She felt she'd be okay with this party. They went deeper and encountered a golem, which she also defeated alone. She continued to eliminate monsters while her teammates just stood and watched. Eventually, she became tired and couldn't walk anymore. She asked how much further they had to go, as this place was already quite deep. Still told her, "We're almost there, just a bit more." They brought her to a chamber filled with glowing blue crystals, called memory crystals. These were what they came to gather. Henrietta was so exhausted, she couldn't stand. Still told Marmok to cast a healing spell, but it was actually a stun spell. They mocked her for being a fool. We flattered her just a little, and she got so full of herself. They would release her after she served them for an hour. They had to stun her again, and if she was lucky, someone might rescue her. Henrietta regretted not listening to Dennis's warning to be cautious. If only she had been more careful from the start, she might have noticed something was off. She cried for help in desperation, but they said, "No one's going to hear you in here." Just as they began to remove her armor, they heard a noise. A muscular man with 2 kitchen knives appeared. They thought he was a monster. No adventurer would carry kitchen knives into a dungeon. They had never seen a monster like this. Still told Kalatoba to cast Search to find its weak point. But it didn't work. Its level was too high. The spell couldn't scan it. The monster attacked them, terrifying them so badly they couldn't even run. Henrietta noticed how strangely the man moved, like a master chef. The next day, she returned to Dennis's restaurant and told him everything. A muscular man had saved her, and when she woke up, she was in the Adventurers Guild lounge. She didn't even get to thank the mysterious man with the 2 kitchen knives. Dennis felt it had been a terrible experience for her. She added that the men who attacked her had been knocked unconscious, tied with rope, and left at the dungeon's entrance. The guild investigated and discovered they were a criminal party. All of them wanted fugitives. She said it all felt like a dream, but it was a lesson. She needed to be more careful when choosing a party. Dennis admitted it was partly his fault. He should have looked into them more. Henrietta told him not to blame himself. He was just trying to help. He asked what she wanted to eat today, but she said she had no money. He told her it was fine. She could order anything she liked. 2 other regular female customers arrived. Dennis asked them to get their own water because Atelier was having dinner. While waiting for their food, the 2 girls asked Dennis, "Why weren't you open yesterday?" He apologized, saying he had something to take care of. Hearing this, Henrietta began to notice Dennis's build and muscles, and guessed that he was the one who saved her yesterday. She asked him what he thought about her continuing to hide her gender while looking for a new party. He advised her to do what she felt was right, because no matter what, she was still herself. She reflected on Dennis's words and made a decision. She immediately borrowed the changing room and took off all her armor. She thought that when people make mistakes, they become afraid of making more, and sometimes they lose themselves. So this time, she decided to be her true self. Atelier supported her with a like. Afterward, she returned to eat the dish Dennis had prepared and complimented it, saying it was as delicious as always. She also thanked Dennis for his helpful advice, but he frowned and said, "You're coming here to eat a meal, but you're looking to join another party, aren't you? Once you finish eating that, go out and find a job, then pay off your tab. The first one was on me, remember? You need to try harder." She chuckled lightly and said things don't always go smoothly. A stranger walked in, sat down quietly, and looked at the menu. They thought he looked very noble and handsome. He asked Dennis what dishes were good here. Dennis replied, "Everything's good here." The boy didn't like Dennis's answer because it was unhelpful, so Dennis suggested a vritra katsudon. But the boy said he wasn't in the mood for a rice dish. Henrietta suggested the pasta, saying it was really good. "You could have a hearty spakatsu." But the boy thought that was a little heavy. Henrietta then suggested kelpie udon, but he declined again, which started to irritate Dennis. Henrietta quickly calmed him down and said, "Everyone's clueless sometimes when they're young." Atelier tugged on the boy's sleeve and said, "In times like this, you should order fried rice." He agreed and ordered it. Dennis returned to a cheerful face and began cooking. With his top-tier skills, the enkake fried rice was ready quickly and caught the boy's attention. He ate it with great enjoyment, but Dennis asked if something was bothering him. He had seen the boy walk in looking like he wanted someone to listen. The boy said, "I don't really have anything special to say, but if you insist. I suppose the issue is that the level of those around me is too low." Everyone was stunned, not understanding what he meant. He continued, "Their mindsets are lacking. All they can think about is completing the quest in front of them and earning paltry amounts. They have no thought of growing into a top-tier party at all. Whatever the case, I refuse to stand for it. For a group of unmotivated louts to carelessly go and play at being adventurers, it's unforgivable. And I'm right? We're talking about adventurers, not safe, fully developed lands. Exploring unknown lands, that's what a true adventurer does, don't you think? And well, when I told him this, my party kicked me out." Hearing that, Dennis grew concerned, wondering why his restaurant always attracted adventurers kicked out of their parties. The boy continued, "A party with such a poor mindset is one I'd like to withdraw from anyway. After all, one day I will reach that pinnacle of adventurers, the Silver Wing Battalion, and I am the man who will become their greatest wizard. Or, if there is ever a party that can keep up with me, I'll consider it." After finishing his meal and paying, he introduced himself as Vivia and said he'd try the shrimp fried rice next time. Dennis realized that this boy really liked fried rice. The next day, Vivia returned to Dennis's restaurant and continued his story, even though no one asked. He said he'd decided to join the strongest party around, the Night Mist Troupe. He claimed he was too famous, so finding a strong party was easy. Dennis asked if his level matched their requirements. Vivia confidently replied that although he wasn't high level yet, he had many advanced skills and was considered a promising talent. So he joined the Night Mist Troupe, and joining the Silver Wing wasn't far off. Dennis thought the boy was a little too self-absorbed, but wanting to improve wasn't a bad thing. If he found a stable party to train him properly, he could become a dependable adventurer. Vivia said his first quest was tomorrow, gathering rare materials for crafting, which meant descending to the 5th floor. Dennis checked Vivia's level. It was 17. For his age, that was fairly high, but going to the 5th floor required a level above 30 to be safe. It's not an area you want to take an adventurer at his level. Vivia knew that, but the top members of the group promised to fully support him. Dennis believed those advanced skills Vivia talked about were probably just from books. In truth, a person's level is a quantification of the number and quality of the skills they've acquired. The reason a person's base stats increase with each level is because the skills they've acquired become more accurate and are almost always active. If he really has acquired multiple advanced skills, then it's odd that his level hasn't increased a similar amount. Dennis advised Vivia to reconsider going to the 5th floor. Even elite members have their limits and can't protect him perfectly. Vivia argued Dennis didn't understand the adventuring world like he did, even claiming Dennis had never been in a dungeon. However, the truth was, Dennis had once reached the 37th floor of the dungeon. Vivia insisted it would be fine. It's a top-tier party after all. He paid and said next time he'd try the crab fried rice. While shopping with Atelier, Dennis kept thinking about Vivia. He's probably arrived at the 5th floor by now. He hoped Vivia would be safe. 2 adventurers from the Night Mist Troupe passed by, talking about Vivia. They said Captain Hopper just wanted to test that boy. But making him go down to the 5th floor just to see if he can make it back alive? It's like a rite of passage. Pretty much everyone has died, though. Dennis grabbed the 2 and interrogated them, learning the whole plan. He immediately told Atelier they'd close the shop early. Atelier understood where Dennis wanted to go and told him to be careful. Meanwhile, Vivia was being chased by goblins. The party told him he needed to pass a test before officially joining. He had to return alone from the 5th floor. While fleeing, magical vines trapped him. He couldn't remove them. He had read about a spell that could destroy them, but his mind went blank. At this rate, the goblins would find him. He'd be stabbed over and over by their broken blades and torn apart. Just then, someone helped remove the vines and pulled him into a hole. He thanked the girl who saved him, but she said, "It's too early to feel safe. We still need to find a way out." They introduced themselves. Her name was Cynthia. She had been abandoned by her party. When they ran from monsters, she was caught in that trap too. But no one came back. They all left her behind. What a horrible bunch. She thought maybe Vivia's party would come save him, but he said, "I'm the same as you. No one's coming for me. Maybe I've been too pretentious. No matter what party I join, I get into arguments. I've just got a terrible personality. I've never talked to a stranger like this before. How can I put it? It's made me feel a little better." Cynthia was glad to hear that. Vivia said he had a plan. "I'll act as a decoy and draw off all the goblins. While I do that, you escape, even if it's without me." Cynthia disagreed, but Vivia said, "I kept thinking I was different from them. But Cynthia, you saved my life. You comforted me. I want you, at least, to make it out of this. I wish it from the bottom of my heart." With that, Vivia ran out. He was trembling but determined to protect Cynthia. He cast Palm to block the goblins, but they tore it apart. Just as Vivia was about to be shredded, Dennis appeared in a mask and saved him. Vivia thought he was a monster and kept casting Palm. Dennis told him to calm down. Vivia recognized his voice and realized it was Dennis, the restaurant owner. He scolded Vivia. "Why did you rush in front of the goblins like that?" He told Vivia to leave quickly, but Vivia said that his friend was still stuck on this floor. However, when Vivia led Dennis to Cynthia, all they found was a skeleton. They returned to the Adventurers Guild and asked about Cynthia. The receptionist said, "Cynthia, 16 years old, wizard. 13 years ago, she got separated from her party on the 5th floor. Whereabouts unknown. She must have died there on that floor." Dennis had heard of such things. The spirits of adventurers who die in dungeons sometimes rescue living adventurers. They later gave Cynthia's bones a proper burial. Vivia promised to visit her grave often. He vowed to become the #1 wizard in the world, no matter what, and to save girls like her. Dennis thought Vivia must be hungry again. He'd make him some fried rice. Suddenly, Vivia sensed Cynthia's magic. In ancient times, anytime people experienced something mysterious that they weren't able to explain or stirred their hearts, they would call it magic. If that's true, then she truly was a magic user, a wizard. A girl is standing on top of a tower, intending to take her own life. Her name is Bachel. Earlier, she had been scolded by her boss for not finishing a report. The boss threw a pile of papers at her head out of anger. All she could do was keep apologizing, even though it wasn't her fault. Her co-workers laughed at her. That night, she kept working hard. The number of collections is wonky here. No wonder the numbers for the completion rewards didn't work out. This was a mistake caused by her coworker, and she was trying to fix it. She had a lot of work left and had to wake up at 3 for a quest. She hasn't had a thing to eat for lunch or dinner. She went out looking for a restaurant, but none of the shops are open now. Just as Atelier was about to close the restaurant, she saw Bachel. Seeing how hungry the girl was, Atelier pulled her inside and told Dennis this would be their last customer. Henrietta and Vivia were also there. Even though the restaurant was officially closed, Dennis couldn't refuse after what Atelier said. He asked the girl to choose what she wanted to eat. She ordered the daily special. Vivia and Henrietta chatted happily with the restaurant owner, which made Bachel feel the atmosphere is nice, and she assumed they must be regulars. Thinking about herself, she spends her occasional work holidays sleeping, and she doesn't have any friends. She figured they must be kind people and thought she should start with going to a restaurant like this one. Dennis brought out the food. Bachel had never seen fried food or sauce like this before. She tasted it and exclaimed, "It's so good!" She had never eaten a meal this delicious before. Hearing that, Henrietta told Bachel everything here is delicious. She recommended the Vritra bowl, the sorcery ramen, the gastrocino, and proudly said she was the restaurant's first customer. Dennis then introduced her as the restaurant's first moocher and told her to go find a job immediately. Meanwhile, Vivia, though still jobless, always paid in full for his meals. Seeing them bantering made Bachel smile, and suddenly, she started crying. She realized, this world has such delicious food, and a place like this in it. There should be so many wonderful things, but every day's been a barrage of anger and spite, and I have to work late into the night. I wake up every morning and feel like I want to die. When she was a child, she could use magic. The villagers had spent a lot of money to support her education, hoping she would become a great wizard. She had skipped grades and become a sage, and the principal rated her as an exceptionally outstanding individual. They even wanted her to join the faculty, but she wanted to be an adventurer so she could make money quickly and send it back to her village. She sought out what was said to be the strongest party in town. Vivia realized she was part of the Night Mist troupe, the same group that had left Vivia to die. He'd only seen her once, but something had bothered him. Vivia and Henrietta wanted Dennis to help this girl. Dennis was grateful they thought so highly of him, but all he could do was feed people. In the end, she would have to face things on her own. Bachel had spent many sleepless nights due to stress. She was exhausted, but if she didn't get up, she'd be late. When she arrived late, her seniors scolded her. During a dungeon exploration, she saved a senpai, but instead of being thankful, he pushed her down. They blamed her for embarrassing him, saying he could have handled it himself. They thought she was trying to steal everyone's achievements. Bachel kept bowing and apologizing amidst their verbal abuse. While Vivia and Henrietta were out enjoying some food, they saw Bachel looking downcast on the street. They followed her to the top of the tower. Bachel wondered how things had come to this. To her, maybe there's no point in living anymore. She jumped. Henrietta immediately jumped after her, and Vivia cast palm to save her. They brought her to Dennis's restaurant, hoping he could help. Dennis said, "It's an illness of the heart. The more earnest a person is, the more they take on, and it busts their heart apart." Vivia joked, "That sounds like an illness that Henrietta-san will never need to worry about." Henrietta threatened to list all his flaws. Dennis thought, these two get along really well. Back to the main issue, the only thing they could do to help Bachel was let her rest long-term. Dennis said he would talk to the Night Mist troupe. A few members of the Night Mist troupe then arrived at Dennis's restaurant after hearing a member of their party was there. One of them was Hopper, the captain of the Night Mist troupe. Dennis saw he was level 51, a very high level for an average adventurer. No wonder they were the town's strongest party. Dennis told Hopper that Bachel was resting here. "She's in no condition to be working for you. I was hoping you'd let her leave your party and get treatment." Hopper refused, saying that would be a problem for their party. He showed Dennis her contract. Dennis read it and found it a terrible contract. "This amount of work isn't something you should give to just one person." Hopper replied, "That's the way we do things, you see." Dennis was furious. "You've been working her to the bone and plan to squeeze every last drop from her. An adventuring party? Don't make me laugh. You're just a gang of vicious swindlers." Hopper warned, "This here is our turf. That means we're the law. If you don't want to face a world of hurt, hurry up and hand Bachel over. This is the last time I'll ask politely." Meanwhile, Bachel asked, "Why didn't you let me die? Someone like me is better off dead." Atelier explained, "Dying. That's something you're free to do." Atelier had also considered death. Everything was taken away. Then came banishment and being sold as a slave. That's when death seemed tempting. But Atelier didn't die. Something good happened, and that changed everything. She told Bachel, "First, eat some delicious food. You can decide after that. If you still want to die, then maybe there's no other path. But I'd rather you didn't. That's what I think." Dennis quipped, "You act like you're pretty important. Do you think you're a king or something?" Hopper agreed, "It's the truth. In every dungeon town, the strongest party holds real power. The Silver Wing Battalion is a good example. They have royalty and great nobles as clients. We only control this little town. But, you know, this is a shabby little place. Seems like it'd burn really well. If a dinky restaurant like this burned down, I doubt anyone would notice." Tension was high when suddenly Katie entered. She found him and complimented the restaurant. "It has that everyday sort of feel to it." Dennis told her he was in the middle of something and asked her to come back later. Katie refused. She came all the way from the royal capital. At least she wanted to have a meal. Hopper wondered, who is this girl? Until he noticed that distinctive crimson armor, 2 red swords, hair like flames, and that embroidery. This woman was the vice captain of the Silver Wing Battalion, Crimson Swift Sword. He wondered, what is the relationship between these two? Back to the matter at hand, Dennis asked Hopper, "I don't want to fight. Isn't there any way you could let Bachel leave the party?" Their conversation was interrupted again by Katie hugging Vivia, thinking she was such a cute girl. Dennis told her, "Vivia is a boy." Vivia asked her, "You're the vice captain of the Silver Wing Battalion, Katie-san, aren't you? What's your connection to Dennis-san?" Katie replied, "Dennis used to be a member of the Silver Wing Battalion. He was basically my partner." Everyone was shocked. Hopper started to panic. He'd been messing with someone from the kingdom's strongest party. He ordered his men to burn Bachel's contract immediately. He allowed her to leave the party. This discussion is over, and the group left. Dennis was glad it ended peacefully. Katie realized the group had been causing trouble and said she didn't want them staying in the kingdom anymore. Dennis told her, "Don't get too cocky," though he admitted she might be able to make it happen. She thought he was such a stick in the mud, though she liked that part of him too. He asked what she wanted to eat. Atelier brought Bachel out, and she ordered the daily special. Katie also wanted the same. Dennis brought out the food. Katie ate with a look of bliss. Bachel tasted it and found it incredibly delicious. Bachel thanked Dennis. It truly was a wonderful meal. At Vigo's party, he was very frustrated because lately their quests haven't been going well at all. He heard that Katie went to see Dennis and asked her, "Why did you go to him?" Katie replied, "No reason. I wanted to eat his cooking again since it's been a while. That's all." But in truth, she wanted to beg Dennis to return to Silverwing. Without him, Silverwing is on the verge of collapse. He was the linchpin of their rear guard, and now that he's gone, the members most affected by his absence are at odds with Vigo. But Dennis isn't interested in going back. He likes his life here. True, his regulars are all a bunch of fools, but he likes this restaurant. There's no chance he's going back to that stress-inducing party. At the end of the day, he's a cook, not an adventurer. Katie told Vigo that Silverwing needs Dennis, but Vigo stubbornly disagreed. He even forbade Katie from associating with Dennis. Meanwhile, Dennis's restaurant business is thriving, with more and more customers coming in. Henrietta and Vivia were surprised to see that Bachel had become a waitress at the restaurant. Bachel thanked them for visiting her often when she was unwell. From today, she'll be living here and helping out. Dennis brought out food and still made Henrietta excited as always. However, Dennis complained that she was a freeloader. To this day, she still hasn't paid off her tab. Henrietta shyly and awkwardly explained that she still hadn't found a stable job. Bachel and Vivia noticed that more customers were coming, and Atelier seemed happier than usual. Suddenly, Dennis was so startled that he dropped a pot. With a worried face, he asked Vivia, "Can you come here on our next day off? I want your advice about something." Henrietta overheard and wanted to help too, but Dennis declined, thinking she wouldn't be able to handle it. Vivia didn't mind and was happy to help. That night, Henrietta bathed with cold water. She wanted to go to a public bath but had no money. She wanted to quickly earn some money to pay the boss back. On the restaurant's day off, Dennis told Vivia that Atelier has a boyfriend. That was the matter he needed advice on. He explained that lately he's been giving Atelier some pocket money. After that, she started going on walks all the time. When he got curious about where she was going, he saw her walking with a boy. Vivia thought they might just be friends, but Dennis insisted it was her boyfriend, not just a friend. He wouldn't allow some shallow, flashy weakling. Atelier's boyfriend must be at least level 80 to get his approval. Atelier suddenly appeared and asked what Dennis was talking about. Vivia quickly covered by saying Dennis wanted to learn cooking from her. Hearing that, Atelier also wanted to learn to cook. Dennis got excited and wanted to teach her immediately. First, they needed to wash their hands thoroughly. They were going to learn how to make vritra katsudon. For this dish, the way you cut the onions affects how good it tastes. He gave Atelier detailed and enthusiastic instructions, treating her very kindly, unlike how he treated Vivia. After a while, the two finished cooking. He praised Atelier for doing so well on her first try. He also praised Vivia's cooking, even though he hadn't even looked at it. Hearing the clock chime, Atelier said she was heading out for a bit. Vivia and Dennis guessed she was going out on a date. At that moment, Bachel arrived. Dennis told her to eat the katsudon and asked her to go shopping for ingredients. He and Vivia had a little errand to run. Bachel worried she couldn't handle the shopping alone. Just then, Henrietta arrived. Dennis asked her to go shopping with Bachel. Henrietta was happy to help, as it eased her guilt for constantly freeloading at the restaurant. Vivia felt awkward about what they were doing, saying it felt like they were stalkers now. Dennis said he was her guardian, so it was only right. He told Vivia to look. There's her boyfriend. Vivia said it's good for her to have friends. Atelier and the boy walked into a jewelry store. Dennis was shocked, thinking they were about to buy wedding rings. It's too soon for a marriage proposal. He desperately wanted to know what they were buying, but he couldn't go in. Vivia came up with an idea. Meanwhile, Henrietta and Bachel were shopping for ingredients. Henrietta was thinking of how to pay him back soon. If this kept up, she feared the boss would hate her. Bachel asked, "You're going on one-off quests, aren't you? Why is it so hard to save up money?" Henrietta replied, "The upkeep costs for my weapons and equipment, and I get hurt a lot, so I have to buy healing potions and things too. I don't know why, but the more I work, the less money I have. I wish there were some other way I could show him my appreciation, but I don't know what I can do." Bachel encouraged her. Your feelings are what matter most. I'll be rooting for you. News had spread throughout town that Dennis had defeated the captain of the Night Mist Troop, and also that he was once a member of Silverwing. At this moment, Vivia borrowed a magic item used for speeches and plays. It was imbued with wind magic to project voices over long distances. He combined it with his own magic to eavesdrop on the conversation inside the shop. What they heard was, "Yes, that might be good. So dashing. Love. Treasure for a lifetime. Atelier is so glad she met you." Dennis was furious and wouldn't allow it. Just then, an old lady nearby was robbed. Dennis and Vivia chased the purse snatcher. The thief knew the old lady was carrying a lot of money, so he stole her purse. Looking back, he saw Dennis carrying Vivia on his back and gaining on him. The thief was shocked. He was level 30, yet these two were catching up. What surprised him most was that Dennis wasn't using any magic. He was chasing with pure physical strength. The thief decided to jump over walls to escape Dennis. Vivia cast Palm to help Dennis move through the air. Dennis pinpointed the thief's location, but was blocked by wind magic. Still, he didn't give up and kept chasing. When they reached the market, they ran into Henrietta and Bichelle. Dennis told them to catch the guy. Henrietta saw this as her chance to prove her usefulness and successfully took the thief down. Dennis praised her for doing a great job. That night, Dennis told them that Atelier Shan has a boyfriend. He was very worried because she was still so young. Seeing his strange behavior lately, Henrietta misunderstood and thought she was going to get banned from the restaurant. Dennis said, "When you eat, you always look like you're enjoying the food. How could I ban you?" Hearing that, Henrietta felt so relieved. Atelier returned and gave Dennis a gift. She had saved up her pocket money and asked someone from the jewelry store for help. She chose it because it's the same color as Dennis's eyes. It turned out that the boy worked at the jewelry shop. Everyone laughed. It had all been a misunderstanding. Henrietta told Atelier that Dennis thought she had a boyfriend. Dennis, embarrassed, turned to Henrietta and said, "I think I will ban you after all." Henrietta tearfully begged the boss not to do that and promised to give him a gift too. After a busy day at work, Dennis asked Atelier to help him clean up outside. But suddenly, a guest stepped in, even though the restaurant had already stopped serving lunch that day. The guest began crying heavily upon seeing Atelier and called her, "My lady," shocking everyone. Henrietta thought this old man had a thing for little girls and wanted to cut him down. Vivia told Henrietta not to jump to conclusions so quickly. The man tried to explain to Atelier that he was Stevens, the butler of the Workstat family. While Dennis and Henrietta were confused, Vivia and Bachel were utterly shocked. Because the House of Workstat is the greatest family of wizards in the kingdom. Their lineage stands at the top of all wizards everywhere. Stevens declared, "The day when your honor shall be vindicated is upon us, my lady. To think that my lady has been reduced to waiting tables in a squalid restaurant." Hearing that, Dennis wanted to kick the guy out. Vivia understood how he felt, but asked Dennis to listen to what had happened. Stevens continued, "I was formerly the butler in the Workstat household. My name is Stevens. At the request of the Royal Court of Justice, I've come to retrieve Lady Atelier. My lady's late father, Lord Famas, has a younger brother, Joseph, who stole her inheritance. He used a rumor that she is not of Workstat blood as a justification to cast her out of the family. But now, her father's will has been discovered. It is Lady Atelier who is the rightful heir to the House of Workstat, and the will states that she should inherit all the family's wealth and power. The royal government has formally acknowledged the will, and the Court of Justice has agreed to investigate Lady Atelier's legitimacy as heir. My lady, it's time to expose that accursed Joseph's villainy and defeat him. And then, my lady, you will officially become the House of Workstat's next leader." Before he could finish, Atelier said she didn't want to go, shocking Stevens. She remembered her past and became terrified. Stevens asked her, "Why are you saying such things, my lady? You're not someone who should be made to labor in a dingy kennel like this. Quickly now, it's time for you to return to your rightful place." Dennis acknowledged that it was true. He was just a humble cook in a small town, while Atelier was the daughter of a noble house. Some of what Stevens said made sense. He asked her, "You're sure you don't want to go? Thinking about your future, I don't think this is something you can just ignore. One day you'll have to settle things. Are you sure about not going?" Atelier replied, "If you come, I'll go." So Dennis agreed to go with her. Vivia had already prepared a fancy suit because he wanted to join them too. He told them not to make such sad faces. He was only going for a few days. Atelier had changed clothes and looked very worried. Dennis told her not to worry. He would be by her side. Stevens had the carriage ready and took them to the capital. It was Vivia's first time in the capital, and he was very excited. Dennis told him, "Don't get too excited. "You'll look like some hick from the countryside." Vivia pointed and said, "Look, that's Black's restaurant. They say the food there is the most delicious in the capital." Dennis looked at that restaurant and felt a bit down. He thought he should probably at least pop by there later. They arrived at the Workstadt estate and were greeted by a barrister named Sestovich, who would be handling her case. Dennis introduced himself as sort of Atelier's guardian. Then Sestovich mentioned they would perform a blood test on Atelier, which frightened her. Dennis reassured her, "It's just a little jab." Atelier immediately fainted as the needle pierced her arm. Dennis told Sestovich, "I was hoping you'd tell me more about Atelier's situation in detail. I want to help Atelier too." Sestovich explained, "The previous head of the family, Lord Famas, possessed powerful hypnosis magic. He was able to use magic connected to mind control. There are some forms of magic that can only be used by certain bloodlines or those with exceptional talent. One such form is hypnosis magic, which affects the mind and heart. The Workstadt family is the bloodline which possesses this magic. Atelier has that ability too. Her father was an exceptional man who used that magic to save a great many people. However, his younger brother, Joseph, wanted his position and had him and his wife killed. That's what they say. When that happened, the legitimacy of Lady Atelier's lineage was called into question, and she was cast out. Everything was taken from her. She was thoroughly crushed so that she could never rise again. However, Lord Famas was clever enough to leave a will behind. Now that it has come to light, the royal government has ordered a reinvestigation of the lady's bloodline. That verification will be conducted by this magic item designed for analysis. We'll place the lady's blood here. Next, we'll add Lord Famas's blood, held in safekeeping by the royal government. If a flower-like shape such as this forms, it serves as proof that the two people share first-degree kinship. Even using the blood of Lord Famas's wife, Lady Eliza, produces the same result. Lady Atelier is, without a doubt, the daughter of Lord Famas and Lady Eliza. This is proof she can win this case. The trial began. The judge stated, "In the matter of the will of the previous head of the House of Workstadt, Lord Famas, at the request of the royal government, which has acknowledged said will, the Royal Court of Justice shall examine the legitimacy of said will and the question of the rightful heir to the House of Workstadt and make its ruling." Lord Joseph recognized Dennis and mocked him as a coward who had been expelled from Silverwing. Dennis thought Joseph was one of Vigo's clients. He would make Joseph pay dearly for bullying his waitress. The judge ordered them both to settle down and begin proceedings. According to the will, Lord Famas left everything, wealth, power, and the position of family head, to his daughter, Atelier. His knowledge and books were left to his younger brother, Joseph. The court had to decide the will's legitimacy. Joseph's barrister claimed, "Atelier Workstadt is indeed the daughter of Lord Famas, but she was conceived between him and his low-born mistress. That is not a lineage worthy of inheriting the leadership of a family that dominates all other wizards." Sestovich countered, "This trial is meant to reinvestigate the veracity of that claim. We'll draw Lady Atelier's blood here, before you. If her blood relation to Lord Famas and his wife, Lady Eliza, is proven, there will surely be no further objection to the validity of the will." The barrister drew some of Atelier's blood. Then, lots were drawn to randomly select who would activate the magic item to prevent tampering. Stevens drew the marked lot. Dennis noticed he looked very tense. First, Lady Atelier's blood was added, then Lord Famas's blood. It's a match. Next, they added Lady Eliza's blood. No match. Joseph smiled, as if he knew this would happen. Sestovich exclaimed, "There must have been some malfunction. I request a second test." Joseph retorted, "No matter how many times you try, nothing will change. Do you intend to persist until you achieve your desired result?" The judge ruled, "Barrister Sestovich's objection is overruled." Joseph declared, "Now it's been proven. That girl is not the daughter of my brother and his lawful wife. She was born of my brother's momentary weakness. She cannot possibly become his heir. In accordance with this, we determine that a portion of this will is a falsehood." The judge ruled, "This court rules that there are concerns regarding the validity of this will and that a section of it should be invalidated. However, it has also been proven that Lady Atelier is Lord Famas's daughter by blood. As such, a portion of the will shall be reinterpreted. The House of Workstadt's wealth and power shall remain with Lord Joseph, but the knowledge and books shall be inherited by Lady Atelier. It seems a worthy compromise." Dennis noticed something on Stevens's hand. He approached and grabbed him by the collar. He discovered that Stevens had used his own blood to sabotage the test. Stevens admitted to Dennis, "If I did as Joseph said, he would restore my position as butler." The judge ordered Dennis back to his seat immediately as the trial wasn't over. Dennis picked up Stevens's chopsticks. There was never a marked lot in the box. It was all rigged so Stevens could trick the blood test. When the will appeared, they didn't know how to handle it, so they staged a show. Dennis was furious and wanted to burn them all down, but Vivia stopped him and said, "Doing that will only make the kingdom your enemy. If you're arrested, what will happen to Atelier?" Hearing that, Dennis calmed down. At the end of the trial, Dennis's conduct was overlooked. He was furious, but didn't want things to get worse. Sestovich said, "The knowledge and books of the House of Workstadt have been left to Lady Atelier. Let's go and take a look." The place was originally a book repository, but over the years it had become just a storage building. Atelier accidentally stepped on a trap and fell into a hidden basement. There were books down there too. Vivia and Sestovich took a few books and discovered they were priceless, comparable to treasures of the world. The whole history of humankind and wizardry is right here. They could no longer contain their excitement. Looks like Atelier inherited some pretty impressive stuff. Sestovich guessed, perhaps what Lord Famas truly wanted to leave to Lady Atelier was all of this. Should the worst happen if he left a will like that behind, then Joseph would take the wealth and power and foist the storage building on Lady Atelier. Perhaps he planned it this way. That'd be a masterful plan. Dennis asked Atelier what she wanted to do with this treasure. She replied, "I want to leave them at the restaurant. That way everyone can read them." Vivia disagreed. They were treasures, not some random magazines. The next day, while they were preparing to leave the capital, Vivia accidentally saw a man who looked exactly like Dennis, surprising him. Dennis was standing nearby and told Vivia to hurry up. That man also seemed to know Dennis and called him a counterpart.